Hey Texas nurses, if you've received a letter in the mail urging you to participate in the TPAPN program, watch this video before you decide. Hey y'all, my name is Rob Chestnut. I'm founder of ATX Legal, and today we're going to be talking about the TPAPN program, the Texas Peer Assistance Program for nurses. And it's for nurses who may have a substance abuse problem, or even if they don't have a substance abuse problem, maybe they tested positive for something like marijuana, or they got a DWI or a criminal charge involving a substance. We're going to be talking about what that program looks like and whether it's going to be a good decision for you to enter that program. Now, the way most people hear about this program is after it's been alleged that there's been a substance abuse issue, and that could be with a positive drug test, it could be with a second DWI, or in some cases a criminal charge involving a substance. You can get referred there either by your employer or by another nurse, or in some cases the Texas Board of Nursing. Now, it is a completely voluntary program. However, in some cases, when the board orders you to participate in the program, it's going to be the only way to save your license. But for most nurses, it really is voluntary. They get that letter in the mail and it says, you can go into this program or we are going to report you to the board. And that is a real threat. You probably will get reported to the board if you don't enter TPAPN. But as you'll see, that might still be the better course of action. Let me explain. So let me put myself in your position. You've gotten that letter. It says you are strongly encouraged to enter this TPAPN program. And it has such a great name, right? Peer Assistance Program. It sounds like they're going to get you the help you need, but not so fast. You're going to want to hear about the program first. And one of the best ways to learn about the program, I'm not a nurse. I don't have firsthand experience. But there are plenty of people on TikTok, on YouTube, who have made videos discussing the program and what it's like. I would absolutely urge you to go watch those videos so you can see what those people have gone through who have gone through the program, and then you can make that decision whether you want to voluntarily enter the program or take your chances with a board investigation. Now, one of the main advantages of going into the program is that it is confidential, at least at first. And on the flip side of that, formal charges from the board would be something that would appear on your nursing record. So why would you want to not go into that program and potentially take that risk of having something on your nursing license? Well, the program is pretty arduous. It's not really set up to help the nurses. In fact, I would argue that it is set up for you to fail. One study several years ago found that only 44% of the nurses who went through the program were successful. So what does that tell you? Does that mean that all of those nurses were having significant problems with substance abuse? I would argue no. In fact, the program puts so many requirements on you, both financially and just burdens on your time, that it creates a situation where even people who are honestly trying to go through the program, who are not taking substances, who are abstaining from alcohol, marijuana, or whatever substance it is that they had an issue with, they're still failing out of the program. Oftentimes, the program is going to require you to do random drug screens, and those drug screens happen once a week. So imagine the burden of doing those drug tests every single week. Maybe you have to take off work. You have to pay for those drug tests. So sometimes they cost, on the low end, $60. But if they order you to do a hair test or a nail test, those can go up to $150, $160 every single week. So think about that financial burden and how that would add up. Additionally, instead of it being kind of a normal system where they would just call you and you would come in for a drug test, you call in every single morning, and there's a window that you have to call in. And if you miss that window, that's a violation. So I've heard a lot of stories about people who actually made that call, and for some reason it didn't get recorded, and that got recorded as a violation. In addition, drug screens that come back diluted, or for some reason the drug screen was inconclusive, if you get a couple of those, 3 of those, they're going to consider that a violation as well. And one social media account made a number of videos about this program, and one of the things she talked about is that they assumed guilt. So this person had tested positive for marijuana, which, by the way, is legal. In the state of Texas, you can get certain versions like Delta 8, Delta 9 that are legal. But on the basis of that positive test, she did enter the program and was completely clean. However, she had 2 or 3 over the course of multiple years. She had 2 or 3 diluted or inconclusive samples, and the person in charge of the lab who was reviewing these results basically made it sound like she was guilty, and there was that assumed guilt, which made her feel really terrible. So I would argue that this program is not really meant to protect nurses. It's not really meant to assist nurses. It's basically just this giant burden that they place on people who are either facing substance abuse issues or they simply slipped up with something like marijuana, which should be legal anyway. Doesn't mean that they were high at work. It doesn't mean they were drunk at work, and yet they're being punished. So be very careful when you're agreeing to get into this program. Make sure you do it with open eyes. And we'll talk about some of the reasons to enter the program later, but I would argue there's far more reasons not to enter the TPAPN program voluntarily than there are to enter it. So of course you're wondering what's going to happen to your license if you don't go into the program. Now it is likely that an investigation will be opened, and if they do find that there's enough evidence to substantiate a charge, you could be found in violation of the Nursing Practice Act, and there could be discipline that comes down, and that discipline would be on your record. However, that discipline is often going to be less burdensome than the TPAPN program. So even if you do face that blemish on your record, you're still going to be better off going through the process and going through that investigation so that you can avoid years of your life where you're beholden to this program. And another question I sometimes get is it best to hire an attorney at this stage? And I would say if you do go the route where you don't enter the program and they do open that investigation, I would say yes, hire an attorney to help you craft that response. You can also turn over other evidence, mitigating evidence. Perhaps you've done some voluntary drug tests that have been negative, and you can turn those over to the board as well. And all of that evidence is going to serve to help you when the board makes that decision as to whether or not they're going to come down with discipline in this case. So yes, I would say to talk to an attorney if you are considering the TPAPN program. Speak with an attorney before you decide to do that. And you might come to the conclusion that, yeah, it's worth it to not have that blemish on my record. I'm going to go ahead and go into the TPAPN program. We're going to handle it that way. I know it's going to be a burden, but at least you're going into it with your eyes open and you know what the process is going to be. A lot of nurses sign on the dotted line because they're frightened what's going to happen with their license. They get into this program, and then once they're there, they realize, if I had known what this program was, I would have never voluntarily gone into it. So for that reason, yes, I would speak with an attorney. I would seriously consider fighting the allegations to see if there's a way that you can get that violation turned around. Maybe there's not enough evidence for it. Maybe there was something wrong with the test and we can point that out and there wouldn't be a violation and you can escape discipline altogether. Now, if you've gone through that process and the board has ordered you to go into the TPAPN program as a condition of keeping your license, that is a different story at this time. You are sort of required, if you do want to continue nursing, you are required to go into that program. So that's a different situation. But in the case of going in voluntarily, again, I would argue it's usually not worth it. Of course, none of this video is legal advice, but if you would like legal advice on your specific issue, if you're considering the TPAPN program, you can visit us at atx.legal or text consult to the number below.